The Bornu Empire, 1380–1893, was a state of what is now northeastern Nigeria from 1380 to 1893. It was a continuation of the Great Kanurwa Empire, founded centuries earlier by the Safawa dynasty. In time it would become even larger than Kanurwa, incorporating areas that are today parts of Chad, Niger and Cameroon. Exile from Kanurwa after decades of internal conflict, rebellions and outright invasion from the Bulala, the once strong Safawa dynasty was forced out of Kanurwa and back into the nomadic lifestyle they had abandoned nearly 700 years earlier. Around 1380, the Kanembu finally overcame attacks from neighboring Arabs, Berbers and Hausa, to found a new state in Bornu. Over time, the intermarriage of the Kanembu and Bornu peoples created a new people and language, the Kanuri. Early rule even in Bornu, the Safawa dynasty's troubles persisted during the first 3/4 of the 15th century. For example, 15 Mays occupied the throne. Then, around 1455, Mayali Dunamami defeated his rivals and began the consolidation of Bornu. He built a fortified capital at Nizagamu, in present-day Nigeria, to the west of Lake Chad. This was the first permanent home a Safawa had enjoyed in a century. So successful was the Safawa rejuvenation that by the early 16th century Mayali Gaji (1455–1487) was able to defeat the Bulala and retake Njimi, the former capital. The empire's leaders, however, remained at Nizagamu because its lands were more productive agriculturally and better suited to the raising of cattle. Kanem-Bornu period with control over both capitals, the Safawa dynasty became more powerful than ever. The two states were merged, but political authority still rested in Bornu. Kanem-Bornu peaked during the reign of the statesman Idris Aluma, c. 1571–1603. Idris Aluma is remembered for his military skills, administrative reforms, and Islamic piety. His main adversaries were the Hausa to the west, the Tuareg and Tubu to the north, and the Bulala to the east. His innovations included the employment of fixed military camps, with walls, permanent sieges and scorched earth tactics, where soldiers burned everything in their path, armored horses and riders, and the use of Berber camelry, Kotoko boatmen, and iron-helmeted musketeers trained by Turkish military advisors. His active diplomacy featured relations with Tripoli, Egypt, and the Ottoman Empire, which sent a 200-member ambassadorial party across the desert to Aluma's court at Nizagamu. Aluma also signed what was probably the first written treaty or ceasefire in Chadian history. Aluma introduced a number of legal and administrative reforms based on his religious beliefs and Islamic law, Sharia. He sponsored the construction of numerous mosques and made a pilgrimage, Hajj, to Mecca, where he arranged for the establishment of a hostel to be used by pilgrims from his empire. As with other dynamic politicians, Aluma's reformist goals led him to seek loyal and competent advisors and allies, and he frequently relied on slaves who had been educated in noble homes. Aluma regularly sought advice from a council composed of heads of the most important clans. He required major political figures to live at the court, and he reinforced political alliances through appropriate marriages. Aluma himself was the son of a Kanuri father and a Bulala mother. Kanem-Bornu under Aluma was strong and wealthy. Government revenue came from tribute, or booty, if the recalcitrant people had to be conquered, sales of slaves, and duties on and participation in trans-Saharan trade. Unlike West Africa, the Chadian region did not have gold. Still, it was central to one of the most convenient trans-Saharan routes. Between Lake Chad and Fezzan lay a sequence of well-spaced wells and oases, and from Fezzan there were easy connections to North Africa and the Mediterranean Sea. Many products were sent north, including natron, sodium carbonate, cotton, cola nuts, ivory, ostrich feathers, perfume, wax, and hides, but the most important of all were slaves. Imports included salt, horses, silks, glass, muskets, and copper. Aluma took a keen interest in trade and other economic matters. He is credited with having the roads cleared, designing better boats for Lake Chad, introducing standard units of measure for grain, and moving farmers into new lands. In addition, he improved the ease and security of transit through the empire with the goal of making it so safe that a lone woman clad in gold might walk with none to fear but God. Successes. Most of the successes of Idris Aluma are only known from the meager information provided by the divan. Some of them are noted for having undertaken the pilgrimage to Mecca, others for their piety. In the 18th century, Bornu was affected by several long-lasting famines, decline and fall. The administrative reforms and military brilliance of Aluma sustained the empire until the mid-17th century, when its power began to fade. By the late 18th century, Bornu rule extended only westward, into the land of the Hausa of modern Nigeria. The empire was still ruled by the Mai, who was advised by his councillors, Kanurwa, in the state council, or no Kena. Fulani jihad. Around that time, Fulani people, invading from the west, were able to make major inroads into Bornu. By the early 19th century, Kanem Bornu was clearly an empire in decline, and in 1808 Fulani warriors conquered Nizagamu. Usman Damfodio led the Fulani thrust and proclaimed a holy war, the Fulani War, on the allegedly irreligious Muslims of the area. His campaign eventually affected Kanem Bornu and inspired a trend toward Islamic orthodoxy, but a Muslim scholar turned statesman, Muhammad al-Amin al-Kanemi, contested the Fulani advance. Muhammad al-Kanemi was a Muslim scholar and non-Safawi commander who had put together an alliance of Shuar Arabs, Kanembu, and other semi-nomadic peoples. He eventually built in 1814 a capital at Kukawa, in present-day Nigeria. Safawimays remained titular monarchs until 1846. In that year, the last Mai, in league with the Wada Empire, precipitated a civil war. It was at that point that Kanemi's son, Umar, became king, thus ending one of the longest dynastic reigns in international history. Post-Safawa era. Although the dynasty ended, the kingdom of Kanem Bornu survived. Umar eschewed the title Mai for the simpler designation Shehu, from the Arabic Sheikh, could not match his father's vitality, and gradually allowed the kingdom to be ruled by advisors, wazirs. Bornu began a further decline as a result of administrative disorganization, regional particularism, and attacks by the militant Wadi Empire to the east. The decline continued under Umar's sons. In 1893, Rabi'a Zebdabir led an invading army from eastern Sudan and conquered Bornu. Following his expulsion shortly thereafter, the state was absorbed by the British-ruled entity which eventually became known as Nigeria. From that point on, a remnant of the old kingdom was, and still is, allowed to continue to exist in subjection to the various governments of the country as the Borno Emirate. Bibliography. Brenner, Lewis, The Shehus of Kukawa, Oxford 1973. Cohen, Ronald, The Kanuri of Bornu, New York 1967. Hughes, William 2007. A Class Book of Modern Geography. Paperback, Whitefish Mount, Kessinger Publishing, p. 390 pages, ISBN 1-4326-8180-X, Longy, Dirk, Ladivan des Sultans du Kanem Bornu, Wiesbaden 1977. A Sudanic Chronicle, The Borno Expeditions of Idris al-Alma, 1564–1576, Stuttgart 1987, Ethnogenesis from Within the Chadic State, Pagima 39, 1993, 261–277, Nachtigall, Gustav, Sahara and Sudan, Berlin, 1879–1881, Leipzig 1989, Nachtruckgras 1967, ENGL, Ubers, von Humphrey Fischer. Oliver, Roland and Anthony Atmore, 2005, Africa Since 1800, 5th edition, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, p. 405 pages, ISBN 0-521-83615-8. Hervoy, Yves, L'Empire du Bornu, Paris 1949, Zachara,